හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 22nd of November 2023. Polls goes. Presidential and parliamentary polls will be held next year without delay, says President Ranil Wickremesinghe. ICC demand. SLC writ petition against interim committee to be further considered tomorrow. ICC wants the interim committee to be cancelled, says Sri Lanka cricket president.
Minimum they expect cancel the interim committee. That is the number one thing. They don't recognize any interim committees.
IMF progress. IMF senior missions chief commends the debt deal between China and Sri Lanka as a positive step forward. Stationery Express. Over 11,000 expressway employees strike against the government, urging to meet their demands.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to today's edition of AdaDerana's English News. First at 9, I'm Jonathan Benedict. Let's take a look at our news for the evening, starting with our top story right now. President Ranil Wickremesinghe assured that both presidential and parliamentary elections will be held next year without any delay. Addressing the parliament today, the head of state said that both provincial council elections and the local government elections will be held in 2025. Addressing the cricket woes that are currently plaguing the country, however, the president expressed his disappointment over the act of parliamentarians in criticising the judiciary who delivered decisions pertaining to the sport.
අපේ ලක්ෂ්මන් කිරියල්ල මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කිව්වා දැන් උසාවිය පාලකයන්ට විරුද්ධ තීන්දුව ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඒ මං ඒක ඇති කරේ. ඉතින් මට විරුද්ධ වෙන්න එපා. කොයිද රාජපක්ෂ එයාගේ බලාගන්නේ. ඒක එතුමා බලාගන්නේ. ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී අපි මේ රටේ ඇති කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් දැන් කොහොමද කියන්නේ බයයි කියලා ඡන්දකට? අපි වන් ඡන්දේ පවත්වනවා. ජනාධිපති ඡන්දයයි පාර්ලිමේන්තු ඡන්දයයි දෙකම පවත්වන එන අවුරුද්දේ. එකක්වත් කල් දාන්නේ නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ අවුරුද්දේ අපිට පුළුවන් පළාත් සභාවයි පළාත් පාලනය ඔක්කොම කරන්න. කණ්ඩායම් දෙකක් තියෙන අතන තියෙන අරගලයක් නිසා මේ ක්‍රිකට් මේක පිරිහුණා. ඒක ඇත්ත. මෙතෙන්ට තියෙන්නේ නීතියක් ගෙනලා නීතිය අනුව හරි කණ්ඩායමක් තෝරන්න. ඒ නීතිය ගේන්න තමයි අපි චිත්‍රසිරි වාර්තාවත් අරගෙන ඒක සකස් කරන්න කියලා කිව්වේ. මම ඇමතුමාට කිව්වේ ඒක රහසක් නෙමෙයි. මේක මේ නඩුවම ගෙනියන්න එපා. මේක කරොත් අපිට ICC නැති වෙනවා, මැච් නැති වෙනවා, ටුවරිස්ට්ලා නැති වෙනවා. අනික නඩුවකට පැටලුණොත් නඩුවේ මේසෙන් බේරෙන්න බෑ කියලා. ඉතින් අපි ආපහු කතා කරා කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලෙත්. ඊට පස්සේ සාකච්ඡා කළා. ඇමතුමා කිව්වා ඇමතුමාට නීතිඥයෙක් ඕනේ. මම කිව්වා හෙට මේගොල්ලෝ නඩු දාන්න යනවා මට ඒකයි ආවේ ආරංචිය. ඒ නඩු දාන්න යන නිසා ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී ඔබතුමා ලෑස්ති වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒතකොට එදා නීතිපතිතුමාත් හිටියා අපි කතා කරපු තැන හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමාත් හිටියා. අපි නීතිපතිතුමාට කිව්වා මෙතුමා වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී සිටින්න කියලා. ඉතින් මෙතන උනේ මේ අය යනකොට 10:00 ඒතකොට නඩුව ඉවරයි. ඒක හොයාගන්න ඕන මොකද්ද සිදු වුනේ කියලා. ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී නම කතා කරා ජේෂාට කතා කරා. ඒ මෙහාටත් පණිවිඩය එව්වා ICC එකට. ඉතින් ICC දැන් කියන්නේ මේ තත්ත්වය මේකයි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දේශපාලනය ගෙනල්ලා මේකට මැදිහත් වුණා. ඉතින් ඒක මං හිතන්නේ මට මේ ශමීසිල්ලා ආරක්ෂා කරන්න වැඩක් නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ විවිධ චෝදනා තියෙනවා. ඒකයි කියන්නේ අපිට නීතියක් ගේන්න ඕනේ කියලා. මේගොල්ලෝ මේක මැදිහත් වුණා කියලා. අපිට විරුද්ධව චෝදනා දෙකක් තියෙනවා. එකක් තමයි මේ සභාව ක්‍රිකට් මණ්ඩලේ විසිර හැරීම. ඒකට මම කිව්වා උසාවිය තීරණය දෙයි අපි කරන එක ඇමතුමා කරපු එක නීත්‍යානුකූලද නැද්ද කියලා. අනික කියන්නේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව මේකට එකතු වුණා කියලා. ඉතින් දැන් මේක කොහොමද අපිට විසඳන්නේ? ඇමතුමා ප්‍රකාශ කරේ ගමන් විපක්ෂේ නැගිටලා මේවා කරා. ඉතින් ඊට පස්සේ කොහොමද දේශපාලනේ නැහැ කියන්නේ? මේ වැරද්ද මේ සභාව පිළිගන්නවා. අපි විනිශ්චයකාරවරුන්ට බැන්න. ඇයි බැන්නේ? දොස් කිව්වේ? ඒක తాවකාලික නියෝගයක්. ඊළඟ දවසේ ඕන්නම් ගිහින් ඒක විශ්වාසින්න කියන්න තිබුණා. එක එක චෝදනා කරා විනිශ්චයකාරවරුන්ට. ඒක හරි නෑ. තීන්දුවක් දුන්නා කියලා. ඇයි මේකට හේතුව? ඔය විනිශ්චයකාරතුමා ඩයනා ගම්මගේ නඩුවත් ඇහුවේ නිසා. වෙන එකක් නෙමෙයිනේ. මෙහෙම කරන්න බෑ. මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉඳන් වරප්‍රසාදයට හැංගිලා ගහන්න බෑ. කොහොමද මේ සභාව මේ වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්නේ? මේක ඉස්සෙල්ලා මෙහෙම සිදු වෙලා නෑ. ඒකයි මම කනගාටු.
ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම ශ්‍රී ලංකා ක්‍රිකට් පිළිබඳව මම ඔබතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා. ඔබතුමාගේ යටතේ සිටින ක්‍රීඩා ඇමතිවරයාට ඔබතුමා සවන් දෙන්න. ඔබතුමා සවන් දීලා එතුමාගේ අදහස් පිළිබඳව හොඳ අවබෝධයක් ලබා ගන්න. මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු සභාගර්භය තුල අපි ඓතිහාසික යෝජනාවක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරා. ඒක බාල්දු කරන්න එපා. ඒ වගේ මම ඔබතුමාගෙන් අහන්න කැමතියි. ශම්මි සිල්වා සභාපතිතුමා කොහොමද ලියුම් ලියන්නේ ICC එකට බලපෑම් කරලා අපේ රටේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා ක්‍රිකට් බෝඩ් එක සස්පෙන්ඩ් කරන්න කියලා. නොවැම්බර් 6 වෙනිදා 7 වෙනිදා 9 වෙනිදා ලියුම් මම සභාගත කරලා තියෙනවා. එහෙම ಜಾති ද්‍රෝහි, දේශද්‍රෝහි ක්‍රියාවක් කරන්න. ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් මම අහනවා ඒකට උත්තරේ.
Send me those 3 letters, then I will follow it up. You said there were 3 letters, no?
Yes.
You tabled. Send those to me. I'll follow up on that.
The International Monetary Fund says that the agreement reached between Sri Lanka and the Export-Import Bank of China, or Exim Bank of China, is a positive step forward in the island nation's debt restructuring process, according to the International Monetary Fund. On the 11th of October, the Ministry of Finance announced that Sri Lanka has reached an agreement on the key principles and indicative terms of a debt treatment with the Exim Bank of China in the external debt restructuring program. Commenting on the matter, IMF Senior Missions Chief Peter Brewer said that the global lender stands ready to move forward with the first program review as soon as financing assurances from all official creditors are in place. Commenting on the progress of the IMF program, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya said yesterday that the Executive Committee of the IMF is scheduled to release the second tranche of the extended fund facility, which is approximately $330 million to Sri Lanka, on the 6th of December. Speaking of which, the government is hopeful of obtaining assurances from the external creditors before the International Monetary Fund Board meeting in December. These were thoughts echoed by Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri when commenting on the process of the restructuring of Sri Lanka's external debt. Addressing a media briefing today, the Foreign Minister said that Sri Lanka is taking measures to address economic challenges per the debt sustainability analysis prepared by the IMF.
What's the time frame for this external debt restructuring, Mr.?
External debt restructuring, the first step is to get the framework agreement. So that's been worked out now. There is a board meeting of the IMF in December. So our target is by that time to get the assurances. We are hopeful we should get it.
Given those uncertainties like the debt restructuring and when we are going to start the repayment,
yes,
what are the main challenges do you see economically next year?
I think that's a very good question. Debt sustainability analysis of the IMF had taken that into consideration. So if our revenues come the way we have predicted and when we postpone the payments, mostly it's going to be when it comes to bilateral, it's probably repurposing of those things. So by the time you really start the paying the larger chunks, our economy should have or would have recovered sufficiently to have that amount of money. So the currently immediate challenge is for us to meet the high interest payments, which was a necessity during the last year's high interest rate regime borrowings to the government. So those are the challenges for the time being. But if the debt sustainability analysis is taken into consideration, all these things have been factored in. That's what it's a debt sustainability. What they are saying is that those parameters over a period of time from the debt from 129% of the GDP now to brought it down to the 95%. That's the idea. So apart from that, how many percent of the GDP per year for external debt payment? How many percent of it for internal debt payment? So all those that taken into consideration and factored and prepared the debt sustainability. So everything works according to plan, like nothing to panic.
Moving on to cricket again, the case file pertaining to the Sri Lanka Cricket Interim Committee by Sri Lanka Cricket President Shammi Silva is to be taken up for further consideration before the Court of Appeal tomorrow. The order was made by the Appeal Court Judge Bench comprising of Justices Sobita Rajakaruna and D.N. Samarakun after hearing the case for a second day today. The writ petition filed by the President of Sri Lanka Cricket, Shammi Silva, against the interim committee appointed by Sports Minister Roshan Ranasinghe for Sri Lanka Cricket was heard for the second day today before a two-member judge bench of the Appeal Court comprising of Justices Sobita Rajakaruna and D.N. Samarakun. Highlighting that the powers vested in the office of the Sports Minister per Section 32 of the Sports Law Act No. 25 of 1973 to suspend a national association is limited, President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva, who appeared on behalf of the SLC President, said notices have to be issued to Sri Lanka Cricket prior to the imposition of a suspension, thereby highlighting the failure of the Minister to follow procedure. Reiterating that the International Cricket Council does not condone political interference, President's Counsel De Silva said that the ICC has even denied the acceptance of the three-member Sports Coordination Committee appointed by the Sports Minister for Cricket on the 25th of September. The prosecution further pointed out that the Sports Minister's failure to adhere to the repeated warnings of the International Cricket Council to refrain from interfering into Sri Lanka Cricket's operations has led to the ban on Sri Lanka Cricket. He added that Sri Lanka, however, was allowed to play international cricket following discussions the SLC officials had with the ICC. Meanwhile, appearing on behalf of the Sports Minister, Roshan Ranasinghe, President's Counsel Udita Egalaheva questioned the legality of the petition filed against the minister when he pointed out that the Executive Committee of Sri Lanka Cricket are yet to adopt a resolution to file a petition before the subject minister. Therefore, he stated that the petition can no longer continue. Speaking further, he said that the gazette issued by the Sports Minister on the 5th of November only suspends the registration of Sri Lanka Cricket. During proceedings, Justice Sobhita Rajakaruna questioned the minister's authority to appoint an interim committee after suspending Sri Lanka Cricket's registration. In response, the defence stated that the Sports Minister has the power to suspend Sri Lanka Cricket, and the Act provides provisions for the minister to appoint an interim committee until an election is held to appoint a new group of office bearers. He further pointed out that the decision to issue a gazette notification was made by the minister after considering the report prepared by the Auditor General, which highlighted inappropriate activity carried out by the SLC during the period of the ICC T20 World Cup last year, and added that the petitioners are concealing those facts before the court. Further, the attorney for the Sports Minister said that even Parliament unanimously passed a resolution calling for the removal of the SLC administrators due to the corruption and irregularities that have occurred in Sri Lanka cricket. Taking the presented facts into consideration, the appeal court judge bench ordered that the case be taken up for further consideration tomorrow. As a result of the token strike launched this morning by over 11,000 employees of the Road Development Authority over several unmet demands, the Triforces and police personnel were dispatched on site to ensure uninterrupted operations at the highway entrances continued. Addressing this, the Minister of Transport and Highways, Dr. Bandula Gunawardena, asserted that the ticketing machines at highway entrances had been taken hostage by the employees engaging in strike, and highlighted that the Secretary was instructed to take necessary legal action if state property was damaged. More than 11,000 employees attached to the Road Development Authority have joined the token strike initiated by the All Island Expressway Workers Union this morning by utilising their sick leave. Accordingly, the strike was launched over several demands, including alleged attempts to transfer the revenue-generating expressway network system to a company affiliated with the Ministry of Finance, the delayed allowances for unused sick leave for the 2023 year, and objecting the introduction of the system for optimised recruitment. The trade unions meanwhile added that as a result of the failed discussions conducted with Subject Minister Bandula Gunawardena recently, the executive engineers, provincial directors and employees of the project offices and the head offices joined the strike today. However, Triforces and police personnel were deployed on site since last evening to ensure an uninterrupted service. When the armed forces showed up for duty, it was observed that the ticketing machines in several interchanges of the expressway network had been taken by the employees as part of the strike. As a result, measures were taken to deploy the Triforces and the police personnel for the issuance of tickets at highway entrances. During this commotion, the Minister of Transport and Highways, Bandula Gunawardena, visited the Aturugiriya and Kottawa interchanges this morning to observe the progress of the highways.
රාජ්‍ය දේපොළ තමන් භාරයේ තියෙනවා නම් තමන් වැඩ කරන්නේ නැත්නම් වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් කෙනෙකුට ඊටාම ඉක්මනින් මේ දේපොළ ටික බාර දෙන්න. ඒ දේපොළ වලට යම්කිසි හානියක් මේ මැෂින් වලට කරලා තියෙනවා නම් පරීක්ෂණයකින් පසු ඒ සඳහා ලබා දිය හැකි නීත්‍යානුකූල ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගැනීම සඳහා මම ලේකම්වරයාට උපදෙස් දීලා තිබෙනවා.
The employees engaged in the strike meanwhile addressed the allegations of the subject minister.
ඒ සහකාර අයකැමි අධිකාරීවරුන් සහ ප්‍රධාන අයකැමි නිලධාරීන් සේවය නිවත්වීමට පෙර ඒ යන්ත්‍ර සූත්‍ර සියල්ලම මුදල් සමග ආයතන පරිශ්‍රයේ ඉතාමත් සුරක්ෂිතව උතුරා තබා තම සේවයෙන් පිටත් වෙනවා.
අද රාත්‍රී 7ට අපි නැවත සේවයට එනවා. එතකොට අපි හෙට නැවත මේ විදිහට රාජකාරී කරනවා. ඒ ඉල්ලීම් වලට සාධාරණ විසඳුම් ලබා දෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඉදිරියට දැඩි වෘත්තීය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න බව අපි මේ පාලකයන්ට අනුතුරු අඟවනවා.
මං අහනවා ගරු ඇමතුමාගේ මේ අධිවේගී මාර්ගය බදු දෙන්න හරි විකුණන්න සැලැස්මක් තියෙනවද කියලා.
බදු දෙන්නවත් විකුණන්නවත් නැහැ. අධිවේගී මාර්ග මේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන දැවැන්ත මූල්‍ය කළමනාකරන අර්බුදය තුල රාජ්‍ය වත්කම් වැඩිකට පෙන්වීම සඳහා මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයට තියෙන 100% රජයේ සාහනයා කියන සමාගමට පවරලා
සේවකයන්ට ඇත්ත කිව්වනම් ඉවරනේ. හරි. සේවකයන්ගේ රැකියාවට ඇති වෙයි කියලා විශාල බයක් තියෙනවා. මමත් මහාමාර්ග ඇමතිවරයෙක් කටයුතු කරනවා. එයා මට කතා කරුවා. ඒකයි මම ගහන්නේ.
අධිවේගී මාර්ග. ඒ ටික මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයට පවරගෙන තියෙනවා. පරිපාලනය කරන්නේ අපි. මාර්ග සංවර්ධන අධිකාරී විසින්. කායවත් රස්සාව හිමි වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
As a result of the heavy rains, water levels of the reservoirs continue to remain on the rise. The pounding rains have resulted in the National Building Research Organisation issuing level 2 landslide warnings to 5 districts. This comes in the aftermath of yet another tragedy when a person reportedly died following a landslide which occurred on the Kandy-Colombo Road last night.
With torrential rains affecting several parts of the country over the past few days, several areas of the island continue to remain inundated. This has resulted in a complete submergence of the Panadar area. Several reservoirs, including the Victoria Reservoir, the Rajangane Reservoir and the Angamo Reservoir, are currently overflowing due to the heavy downpour. Further, the water capacity of the Kalni River has significantly risen. Additionally, the water level of the Pugoda water gauge in the Kalni River, which recorded 4.42 meters water capacity last evening, had risen to 6.3 meters by this morning. Subsequently, the Met Department forecasted fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters at areas in the central, Sabaragamuwa, Uva, southern, western and northwestern provinces. The department in its advisory added that heavy showers are expected tonight in parts of the country. In other related news, one person was killed in Peradeniya town of the Kandy Colombo road after a landslide occurred in the area last night, damaging several nearby shops. Further, the landslide warnings previously issued to Glenano Estate in Haputale have been reinstated. 114 people in 34 families residing in the area have been evacuated. In light of this, the National Building Research Organisation issued amber landslide warnings to 5 districts. Accordingly, landslide warnings were issued to parts of the Badulla, Kandy, Kegal, Mathura and Ratnapura districts.
A quick update that just came warns of minor floods that can occur in low-lying areas of Mirigama, Divulapitiya, Attanagala, Mahara, Gampaha, Minuangoda, Jayala and Wattala as water from the Attanagala Oya is rising. Moving on to cricket news again. Sri Lanka Cricket President Shammi Silva stated that the suspension by the International Cricket Council imposed on Sri Lanka will only be lifted if the subcommittee appointed by the minister is withdrawn. The Sri Lanka Cricket President said this after returning from the annual general meeting of the International Cricket Council held in Ahmedabad, India. At a press briefing held today at SLC, Silva said that the national team can participate in international tournaments and Sri Lanka also has permission to host bilateral tournaments within the country, despite the suspension.
ඇත්තටම ICC මීටින් එකේ ගොල්ලන් කිව්වේ තනිකරම political interference කියලා තමයි කිව්වේ. එතන ICC එකේ ඉන්න ග්‍රෙග් බාක්ලෙට් එයා කිව්වා මේක ක්‍රිකට් එක විතරක් නෙමෙයි රග්බිත් මේගොල්ලන් තහනම් කරගෙන තිනවා ලංකාවේ කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ මෙතන මිස්ටර් ඉම්රාන් කවාජ කියලා මෙහි ආපු එක්කන එයා කිව්වා මෙහෙමයි මමත් ගිහලා මිනිස්ටර් එක්ක කතා කරා. මටත් තේරුණා මෙතන එයාට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මේක. ඉතින් ඊට පස්සේ මේක ඉස්සරහටත් මේක අනිත් රටවල් වල වෙන එකත් නවත්තන්න කියලා තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ තීරණය ගත්තේ. ඒ අතරතුර ඒගොල්ලන් කිව්වා ෆන්ඩින් උත් නවත්තන්න කිව්වා මම කිව්වා ෆන්ඩින් නවත්තන්න එපා. මේකට කන්ට්‍රෝලින් ෆන්ඩ් එකක් දෙන්න අපි එතකොට ඔක්කොම යන වියදම් ටික අපි එවන්නම් ඒ වලට දෙන්න කියලා. ඒකටත් ඒගොල්ලන් එග්‍රී වුණා. ක්‍රිකට් එක ගැන ආවම මම කිව්වා ක්‍රිකට් එක නවත්තන්න දෙන්න එපා. අපේ කිව්වා මේගොල්ලන් එග්‍රී වුණා ඒ සැරේ. හරි ක්‍රිකට් එක දෙන්නම්. අපි ඒකත් බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ ඉස්සරහට කියලා ඒගොල්ලන් ඒකට එග්‍රී වුණා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒගොල්ලන් කිව්වා අපි තමයි ඉලෙක්ටඩ් බොඩි එක අපේ බෝඩ් එකෙන් රෙප්‍රසන්ට් කරන ඒගොල්ලන්ව තමයි ඒගොල්ලන් පිළිගන්නේ වෙන කාවකත් ඒගොල්ලන් පිළිගන්නේ නැහැ කියලා.
කාන්තා කණ්ඩායම සහ 19 වෙනි 15 කණ්ඩායම් වල ඉන්න ක්‍රීඩකින්ගේ කොන්ත්‍රාත් මුදල් වල මොනවා හරි සංශෝධනයක් හරි මොනවා හරි සිද්ධ වෙනවද ඉදිරියේදී කොහොමද?
සංශෝධනයක් කරන්නේ ක්‍රිකට් වලට වියදම් කරන හැම එකක්ම හැම සතයක්ම මේ විදිහටම යනවා. අපේ සේවකයන් ඔක්කොටම අපි පඩි ගෙවන්නෙත් ওই විදිහටමයි කාගෙන්වත් කැපෙන්නේ නැහැ.
ඊ ICC බෑන් එකේ ක්ලියර් නැති තැනක් තියෙනවා. බිලැටරල් සීරීස් අපිට හොස්ට් කරන්න රයිට් තියෙනවද ප්ලේ කරන්න විතරද නැත්නම්?
නෑ අපිට තියෙනවා හොස්ට් කරන්නයි ප්ලේ කරන්නයි දෙකම රයිට් එක තියෙනවා.
දැන් අපිට මේ හොස්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන් අන්ඩර් 19 ගැලවුණේ ඒ කියලා පොඩ්ඩක් පැහැදිලි කරන්න.
නෑ අපිට හොස්ට් කරන්න ඕන බයිලැටරල් වර්ල්ඩ් ටූර්නමන්ට් සස්පෙන්ඩ් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. අපිට බයිලැටරල් කරන්න පුළුවන්.
අපිව සස්පෙන්ඩ් කරලා තියෙනවා ICC ඉවෙන්ට් ලංකාව තුල පවත්තන. ඉතින් ඒක තමයි. නැත්තම් ක්‍රිකට් ගහන්න පුළුවන් බංග්ලාදේශ කණ්ඩායමත් ඇෆ්ගනිස්තාන් කණ්ඩායමත් ජනවාරි මාසේ එනවා. ඒ තරගාවලියත් පැවැත්වෙනවා. එතකොට වයස 19 15 ආසියානු කුසලාන තරඟාවලියටයි ඒ වගේම ලෝක කුසලාන තරඟාවලියටත් අපේ කණ්ඩායම සහභාගී වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඇත්තටම ඒක ජයග්‍රහණයක් ලොකු ජයග්‍රහණයක්. මොකද අපේ කණ්ඩායමට අපේ ක්‍රීඩකයින්ට මේ අවස්ථාවන් ලැබෙන එක.
What does the ICC expect from Sri Lanka to have the ban lifted from?
Minimum they expect cancel the interim committee. That is the number one thing. They don't recognize any interim committees.
How much of foreign money has Sri Lanka country losing by not hosting the Under-19 World Cup? And also the annual conference is also on the line now.
Yesterday a few hoteliers spoke to me. They said they are losing about 10 to 12,000 room nights for the Under-19 minimum. And altogether it's about $100 million I think. Both together. I think it's about $100 million.
Welcome back. Sri Lanka needs to divert from the current tax methodology in order to reach the government estimated tax revenue for the upcoming year. Thoughts echoed by tax experts say that the government must impose tax on capital over labour and income over consumption in order to raise tax revenues going forward to the next year. Today we have Raja Kulendran of Verite Research joining us in our next segment, Understanding Taxes in Sri Lanka, to further explain the government's tax methodology.
Raising revenues for Sri Lanka is of utmost importance because Sri Lanka has one of the lowest revenue to GDP ratios in the world, and also almost 75% or even more of revenue goes for paying interest costs. Given these critical ratios, Sri Lanka needs to increase revenue, and it's of utmost importance. Even the 2024 budget expects revenue to be increased by 45%. The concern, of course, is how are we increasing this revenue, or how are we expecting this revenue to be increased? Even Dr. Shamini Kure, in her recent oration to the Central Bank, stated that Sri Lanka is focusing more on taxing labor over capital and taxing consumption over incomes. And these ratios need to shift. We should be taxing capital over labor, and we should be taxing incomes over consumption. And when these ratios shift, that is how we raise revenue. Verity Research, along with UNICEF, has published how to increase revenue of various revenue proposals in its recent fiscal space study that is available online. And there are various other revenue enhancing measures that Sri Lanka can also opt for.
The government of Japan has provided a grant assistance of 770 million rupees to support Sri Lanka's fisheries sector and the field of meteorology. A grant assistance adding up to 160 million Japanese yen, which is approximately 335 million rupees, has been committed to the project for the establishment of the Doppler weather radar network in Sri Lanka. This is in addition to the 3.4 billion rupees given in 2017 through the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA. The grant will be used to implement a terminal which is essential for securing reliable data communication in severe disaster situations which can disrupt conventional communication. Additionally, the Japanese government, under its Economic and Social Development Program, has allocated a grant assistance of 200 million Japanese yen, which is approximately 435 million rupees, to support the fisheries industry in Sri Lanka. The grant is expected to aid in developing cold chain facilities and equip the fisheries sector with modern electronic equipment and upgrade the living standard of the fishermen in the northeastern and eastern provinces. Under this grant assistance, ice-making machines, digital platform scales, sets of fishing nets, refrigerator trucks, and prefabricated refrigerators and freezers are to be provided. In some good news, the Colombo Stock Exchange ended 6 consecutive days of losses by closing higher today, aided by gains in industrial and consumer staple stocks. The CSE All Share Index closed up 0.38% at 10,547.75 points, while the S&P SL20 ended 0.31% higher at 2,981.60 points. Expo Lanka Holdings PLC and Lion Brewery Ceylon PLC were the top gainers on the index, rising 1.96% and 4.54% respectively. Trading volume on the CSE All Share Index rose to 46.5 million shares from 28.6 million shares in the previous session. Equity market turnover rose to 2.10 billion rupees from 912.5 billion rupees in the previous session. The diversified financial sector was the top contributor to market turnover today, while the banking sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 248.2 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading shares worth 1.99 billion rupees. Up next is Udish and Jonas from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy of the country in our next segment, Sri Lanka's Economic Outlook.
On the interest rate front, we saw the short-term interest rates fall further during the week, where the average weighted prime lending rate fell by 0.17% to 13.14%, and the 3-month treasury bills at today's auction fell by 9 basis points to 15.29%. Market liquidity has turned negative from a positive 23.4 billion to a negative 42.9 billion this week. Given that the treasury or bond auction the previous week was rejected by a substantial component, the market believes that the government has raised enough through tax collections and previous auctions, which may reduce their requirement to come in large borrowings in the coming months. As a result, we saw the treasury bond yields fall by roughly 0.3% across the 3 to 5 year tenors. From an external debt restructuring perspective, the IMF announced that China Exim Bank has reached in principle with the Sri Lankan government on possible assurances on the external debt exchange and was waiting for assurances from the remaining bilateral lenders. The market is also expecting the board approval for the IMF second tranche to come in by December, with the completion of the budget which was passed today, and also with Sri Lanka making progress on the external debt restructuring front. This will mean that Sri Lanka will receive $330 million by the end of December, which will improve the market liquidity position in terms of rupees available in the market. On the fiscal front, the government reported that the collections for the month of November in terms of taxes has seen a substantial progress, with the country now anticipating revenue to cross 3.1 trillion rupees by the end of 2023. The figures given by the government as at November 17th was that the state revenue stood at 2.4 trillion rupees, with large contributions coming in from Inland Revenue Department, especially with the VAT and corporate and personal tax collections coming into play. The oil prices fall down to about $82 to the barrel on Brent crude oil, and this is mainly because of US keeping on increasing its oil production, while there has been a slump in terms of demand from a global perspective, with the tighter monetary policy conditions prevailing across the globe. Tourism numbers seems promising going into the month of November and is well positioned to reach 200,000 arrivals for the month of December. The currency was trading at a range between 327 to 329 rupees to the dollar, with marginal pressure reported due to the seasonal import pressure coming in, and also banks building a bit of reserves in anticipation of the international sovereign bonds being able to be converted into rupees when the external debt restructure is announced.
Now let's look at how the rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. BYD, a Chinese-based electric vehicle manufacturer, has collaborated with the John Keells conglomerate, to supply electric vehicles to the country. BYD boasts a vast footprint with presence in over 70 countries. With that, let's take a look at news from the corporate sector today.
BYD, an electric vehicles manufacturer, announced its collaboration with John Keells Holdings, the Sri Lankan conglomerate, to provide new energy vehicles to the Sri Lankan market. The signing ceremony took place at BYD's global headquarters in Shenzhen. During the ceremony, John Keells Group Chairperson Krishan Balendra said, through the partnership, John Keells will bring advanced models to Sri Lanka and contribute to the eco-friendly and sustainable goals of the country. Currently, BYD's new energy vehicles span 6 continents, over 70 countries and regions. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka USA Business Council of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce has elected the Chief Operating Officer of Vichy Plantations, Charithra Hettiarachchi, as the President of the Council for the year 2023 to 2024 at its 7th Annual General Meeting held recently. The newly appointed committee members include officials from Aitken Spence Travels, Expelogics Limited, Jaffer J & Sons, Sampath Bank and Spielberg Holdings. In the meantime, HMB Finance plc said it has appointed Saliya Jayavira as an independent non-executive director to its board effective from 21st of November 2023. Jayavira accounts for over 3 decades of experience in the financial services industry in multiple markets, including the United Kingdom, India, across Middle East and Maldives.
That's all the news I have for you for now. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Do join us again tomorrow at the same time for more breaking news on Sri Lanka's premier English news channel. For now, have a blessed Thursday ahead. Carry an umbrella. Good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.